Facebook people. So glad to see you. Come on in. We're here today with somebody who was a pastor for more than 20 years who decided maybe it's easier to be around comedians. So
Right.
he decided to give comedy a try, and he's a super duper salesperson. He sells cars, and he's always posting couples who buy cars on Facebook.
Right.
Welcome to this little tiny stage of mine at Comic Spot. Welcome the comedy stylings of Marcus Jewell. Hi, Marcus.
Hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. What's going on? What city are you in now? You're down in the South. I know that.
I am in the deep South. I'm in Southwest Virginia.
Southwest Virginia. What's the closest state that you're close to?
I can spit and hit Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, and North Carolina.
No way.
Yeah, I'm in the mountains.
Oh my.
Thus the very heavy country accent.
Yes. Have you ever worked in a coal mine?
Hell no. No, my dad was a coal miner, and
No.
I saw what it did to him, and I absolutely I'm not against it, but I would not do it myself.
You'd rather face hecklers on stage and sinners.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does your family think of you leaving the pulpit to do comedy? Like, all of your family must have some kind of consensus about this.
Most of them expected it. Most of them saw it coming. Um, some of them tried to encourage it. So, and let me clarify. How deep do you want to get into this?
I want to get into it. I want to hear this story. I heard a little bit. It makes my ears tickle.
All right. I cut my teeth on the church pews. That's no exaggeration. I was raised in hellfire and brimstone, that type of church, until I was 15. And my father experienced a nervous breakdown and was institutionalized. He was a very devout Christian. I don't know if he was a deacon. I think he was a deacon, but very involved in church. And where we live, very hyper religious. And some of the terminology people might understand, they might not, but I'm going to try to rush through it. So I left the church when I was 15. I never, ever thought I'd ever be back around it again. Went in the military when I was 18, stationed overseas.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Fought in the Gulf War and experienced Greek Orthodox while I was stationed on the island of Crete. But I came home 21, 22 years old, PTSD, a lot of emotional problems, junkyard dog crazy. And I can't say I was an atheist, but I was close. And long story short, concerning this, I had a radical experience with God. And it literally transformed my life, like overnight. So I immediately started preaching, and I was never, ever the hellfire and brimstone type preacher. I was kind of the Joel Osteen of my day.
Nice.
And I had the mullet to boot. So, and I'm starting to get it back. So anyway, I was a grace man, grace, mercy, all that. I didn't care if you were atheist, agnostic, Jewish, no pun intended. it didn't matter to me. It was just like God loves us all, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I entered my first pulpit as a pastor, I don't know, 10, 12 years later. Became a youth pastor and then eventually became a senior pastor. And I'm going to leave a lot of the story out, but in 2011, we started seeing my dad suffer from depression again. And he had been stable for 20 plus years. Saw him suffering from the depression. We're trying to get him to get help and make sure he was taking his medicine, etc. And I would visit him every day and pray with him, and we were trying to do the right thing. And I went to visit him one day, and I found him taking his last breath, and due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So that's when the questions started, the whys, the what ifs, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Experienced a lot of church hurt. Now, mind you, I've always been a crackerjack. I've always been a cut up, the class clown type. And I used to joke a lot in pulpits. I would tell jokes. Not the kind of jokes I tell now, but so anyway, I guess 6, 7 months, 8 months after my father's suicide, I was in a very dark place. And again, long story short, I found myself checking into a psych ward, the VA psych ward. I checked in a Christian, stayed 7 days, checked out an atheist. Now, I had developed a phobia, a fear of being in front of people, speaking in front of people, being around people, and that was not my nature. That's not my personality. I'm a social butterfly, and I really didn't know how to overcome that fear. So I had my brother pick me up at the psych ward, and when he picked me up, it was at the VA in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Okay.
And I said, take me to Knoxville. I'm going to Side Splitters Comedy Club. I'm going to do an open mic. And he's like, you've definitely lost your mind. So he takes me to Side Splitters. I almost puked before I got on stage. And mind you, this is a guy that I've been in pulpits for 20 years. But I had developed that fear, and I was like, the only way I know how to overcome this fear is get in front of complete strangers and make a fool of myself. But I almost puked before I got on stage. And once I got on stage and got behind the light and got my first laugh, I was absolutely hooked. And now, mind you, I'm not in an area where we are saturated with comedy clubs. So it's not been a weekly thing, a monthly thing. Now here lately, I've been going about once, twice a month. Kind of had to wait till COVID died down a little bit. But that's how I got into stand-up comedy. And believe it or not, at times I look back and it's like I am Sam Kinison reincarnated. And some of the exact same things that happened to him, it seems like that's how my life has played out. And I'm not the best in the world, but I'm not the worst. I've actually got paying gigs at times, so that was a pretty big deal for me. And I absolutely fell in love with the comedy scene, the crowd, the people. It felt like church to me. It felt like what church should be. Yeah, and I've even said at times it's competitive. That's human nature. But it's a place where there's really no judgment. There's no censorship. There might be a little bit now, but you can create your own thing, make people laugh. And I look at it and I'm like, laughter is like really good medicine. And at the comedy clubs, the pharmacy is open. So I fell in love with it, and it just, I've always kind of wanted to do it, but I was always afraid to do it. And unfortunately, it took tragedy to kind of lead me down that path. And I will gladly admit that it helped me overcome the fear. So it succeeded. And at first, the only way I know how to put this, I did it kind of pridefully. I didn't care if people laughed or not. It was more about therapy for me, overcoming things. Now, people didn't realize that because you can't talk about it. But then it developed into, like, really trying to write jokes and trying to be really creative. And my stuff is very dark. It's very twisted, and it's warped, and it's graphic. And I'm more of a storyteller type, just like I am right now. I'll tell a story, and I'll try to, insert a joke here and there. Most of my stuff, it's literally like what I'm telling you right now. There's truth to it, a lot of truth. And some of my punchlines are embellished and maybe not so true, and I know people that are sitting in the audience, they don't know this. But most of my stuff, it's written around real life events. I worked in prisons for a very long time.
Wow.
So I learned how to deal with hecklers in prison. That is truth. And I literally, after my father's suicide, I forgot how to laugh. And I became depressed. And comedy, if I can say this, and, I know people are sensitive when you say the word God, but, they'll get over it. God saved me through comedy. That is the truth. Like literally just picked me up, dusted me off, gave me purpose again. And no, I mean, I don't ever see me doing it. I would love to do it as a career, but, I just turned 49. I tell everybody I'm 50 just because it's a round number. So who knows? I'm sorry, go ahead.
What do you want when the pandemic is over out of your comedy? What legacy do you want to leave?
Just a guy that experienced a lot of hardship, but he was still able to make people laugh. Because I know that you're always looking at people that are probably experiencing the same stuff in life, maybe not as extreme or whatever, but to have someone sit there and laugh and enjoy life, that's a legacy in itself. That's a huge accomplishment. And sometimes mine might be more like shock therapy, but if I get one person to laugh, I don't care if I have to travel 3-4 hours, I pay whatever just to go and stand on a stage. One, it's therapeutic for me. Two, I know the backstory of why I'm there. So it's always an accomplishment for me to get behind a microphone. But now it's more about making people laugh, and because I've dealt with my demons, so to speak. So the legacy, of course, is just a man that overcame hardship and he made other people laugh.
I love that. That's so special. That's a lot like my story.
Right, right.
Have you heard me talk about
And I
mine?
know no, and that's what I was getting ready to say. I really haven't heard much of your backstory, um, and I would love to. I mean, that because I know very little about you,
Hmm.
other than this and what I see, on Facebook Live. I don't even remember how we met. I do not remember. I know it was on Facebook, but I don't know how.
Well, I'll post a video that went on television and it'll have my backstory in it and you can hear it.
Yes, I would love to hear it. And I love the fact that you take, I know you're Jewish because I've heard you say it.
Hmm.
I love the fact that you take that and you joke about it. It's just like me. I made jokes about being an atheist. Um, I'm back now. I would quote unquote call myself a Christian. Um, I gave it the old college try to become an atheist, and it's just like I couldn't do it. I couldn't let go of it. And once I got over my anger and my hatred and all that stuff, I tell more jokes about Christianity and religion than I probably do anything. It's just, it's part of my story. Now, it sure as hell ruffles a lot of feathers.
Yep, especially down
But,
where you're at.
I'm all about ruffling feathers anyway. So,
Well, we've gone 31 minutes from the time that I sent you the link. Do you need to get back to work or can you talk a little more?
I can probably talk a little bit more before I get fired. So,
All righty.
uh, and I was really nervous. Like, I know we've done this once before. We did a trial run.
Yep.
I was nervous because I'm like, oh shit, we're going to be live on Facebook.
Woo!
And right, and I got a very colorful mouth to begin with, but I was just like, I can't. It's hard for me to tell jokes in this setting. And I was
Yeah,
like, man, I hope I don't have to tell jokes because I play off of the crowd's the vibe.
exactly.
But I mean, hell, I've preached enough. I can wing anything. So, but yeah, and it's. I think I'm a big student of comedy. Like I'm looking at Sinbad in the background. Um, what a freaking icon! I mean, that guy. And I think he has some of the similar backgrounds I do. I know. I'm pretty sure he was in the Air Force.
Yep.
So we've seen the kind of the nature of comedy. Everybody's so sensitive right now, and it's like the cancel culture and all that stuff going on. It's hard for me to wrap my head around everything that's going on, and if I can say it, you probably saw it not long ago, the incident like with Joe Rogan and Joey Coco Diaz, and there's a lot of stuff going on in comedy, and it's scary, but it's just a wild time. I mean, it's very wild, and I don't sugarcoat it. Um, I get on stage, and most of my stuff, if I make fun of anybody, it's always myself. I stay away from politics. I stay away from sexuality, other than mine. But that's my style, not knocking it. I mean, some of the greatest comedians that I've ever seen and witnessed, and I mean, they were just so dirty, just graphic, and they always came at the taboos, and those were the greats, and some of them are unfortunately gone.
Yes.
And I mean, a lot of them have passed on, and I guess it's our turn now. Or
Yeah, we'll be next.
try to fill those shoes.
Yeah.
And I started rambling, so I do that quite a bit anyway.
That's okay. It makes for a fun trip. Whatever.
I had one of the guys pull up beside of me on the golf cart, and I was trying to shoo him away, and he was like just staring at me like a deer in the headlights. So
What's it like selling cars with a sense of humor?
it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But at the same time, it's one of the best things, because I started not long after everything I just talked about. That's what helped me get reestablished again, I guess, financially, and got me going again and got my feet. Because now I went down a very dark road for about 3-4 years and lost everything, and was literally at one time homeless. And if not for family, I would have been in a really bad place. So, and I'm a very loyal person, and selling cars, it's not for the faint of heart. We don't. Well, let me say this: we don't make as much money as people think we do. Because if we did, I'd already be retired on the beach in Florida somewhere. And it's very similar to church, very similar to comedy clubs, because you're dealing with people, and you deal with the same kind of people. It's just like whether selling cars, going to a bar, or comedy club, or church, you run into the same kind of people everywhere. And I've probably been all those kind of people at one time or another. So.
Well, you can relate really well to people, so that helps you. And you've been through struggles and come out the other end, and so you're non-judgmental. So I'm sure people respond very well to that.
Yeah, and it's not easy because, as I said, I'm in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
And I've had the hell beat out of me with that Bible Belt. And,
yes.
And those words are not exaggerations when people say those.
Yes.
And I lived in Florida for 8 years, and it's very similar down there, like it is here.
Yep.
So you start. I mean, you can talk about homosexuals all day long, and I'm not trying to get into touchy subjects, but you can talk about that stuff from a comedy stage as long as you're respectful. But you start promoting it from a pulpit, like fighting for people's rights, you will get excommunicated, blackballed very, very, very quickly. And here's the thing: I got excommunicated from, and I don't care to name drop, I got excommunicated from the Assemblies of God, which is one of the largest organizations in this country, because of a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So, I look at people that are homosexuals, I'm like, and they're like, why won't the church accept us? I'm like, I got kicked out for a divorce. That's how strict it is. And not all churches are the same, but I think that's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards comedy, because it is, I've heard Dave Chappelle say it, it's the last true place where you can be real. You can be honest, and you can speak from the heart, and you can talk about subjects and things that most of society won't deal with. And I wish I knew how to write books, because if I did, I would write about comedy and just how it's been a life changer, game changer. It's been a life saver for me.
Me too. And I think that your story, somebody that likes to write should write your story, story of your life and story about comedy, because it's super encouraging for
Right.
other people. A lot of people have been through different things, maybe not exactly like you, although a lot of what you've been through, I've been through.
Right.
So I think your story would make a very interesting book to read.
Well, if somebody reaches out to me because of this, I'll share my royalties with you. So
There you go, folks. This is your chance. You're sitting there at home during a pandemic. You got nothing to do
right.
but write Marcus Jewell's story.
I hope they can decipher my hillbilly through my hillbilly accent. So.
Yeah, it's super easy to get through that.
Yeah, I lived overseas for 2 years and I still can't get rid of it. So.
Yeah, I was from Portland, Oregon, and my parents are from Germany, and I went there for 3 years and came back with a Southern drawl.
Right.
And my grandma says, Jesus, she said the whole word. She said, she wasn't talking about the gardener. And she said, how come did you go to Germany and you come back, you can't speak any German and you sound like you're from the South? What's your problem?
Right.
But that's where you meet a lot of people from the South in the military. I can't help it. It's not my fault. Yeah. Thank you. And I know you got to go to work, so I'll let you off the hook.
This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having a voice. Thank you for going and serving our country. Thank you for all you've been through, because without it, you wouldn't be this amazing comic that you are today.
Thank you.
With a book that's coming out very soon from one of these people. One of the two people watching is going to write your book.
Right.
I'm in Vegas. I go with the odds.
There you go.
Thank you. Bye, Marcus Jewell.
All right. You're welcome.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Love you lots. Bye.